Doing your dessert, go ahead. We make a little introduction here to John. Okay, we had a little problem, as I said, with our printing, so I'll read you a little introduction here for John Marra, our speaker. John Marra's triumph over his bladder cancer goes way beyond saying he's a survivor. John's a husband of 23 years, a father of 4, and grandfather of twins. He decided in his cancer journey not to permit the people who he loved the most travel through the horrible vacuum and vortex of cancer protocol treatment that most do just to be told they are cured with only the hope that the cancer would not return. After John's wife, Nancy, was told he was in a life-threatening situation and have to have 4 major organs removed, then he's subjected to radiation and chemotherapy. He realized he literally needed to leave the hospital and decide what was the quality of life that he wanted at 51 years young. Through a surgeon's knife, would the rest of his life really be of normal quality, or could he be healed the nutritionally? God gave him the ability to cure himself. John's fascinating journey of fasting, nutrition research, forgiveness, and above all, perseverance in prayer and complete diet change showed John how to treat his cancer and what to do next. He presently resides in Mayfield Village, spreading his message through his willingness to talk and explain to everyone he meets his journey of discovering how our bodies can cure themselves. His topic today is Cause, Cure, and Cancer-Free, How I Became a Cancer Escapee. I'd like now to present to you John Marra.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming. The man isn't feeling well, so he goes to his doctor. The doctor examines him and then asks to speak with his wife. The doctor tells his wife her husband has cancer. The wife asks, "Can it be cured?" The doctor replies, "There's a chance we can cure it with chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, but you'll need to take care of him the rest of his life. Cooking all the meals, cleaning up the vomit, changing the bedpan, driving him to the hospital for daily treatments, and so on." When the wife came out of the waiting room, the husband asked her, "So what did the doctor say?" She answered, "You're going to die." That's not my wife. My wife actually, like I said, she stuck by me the whole way, and it started basically 3 years ago. I was diagnosed with basically, I went to a doctor because I was having these urgencies and frequencies of urination, and basically it would come on very, very strong during times that I would be active and so forth, and then I also connected it with being dehydrated or not eating enough, eating the wrong foods. So I went to seek my local urologist, and he went ahead and he basically it was he said, "Well, you got some things in your bladder, we're just going to look at them." He says, "But we'll take a look." So we went ahead and scheduled a cystoscopy where they went ahead and they went into the bladder to look for this, to look and see what was there. And he discovered there were some tumors in there, or he called them polyps at the time. And he said, "Well, we're going to have to remove these." And I says, "Okay," he says, "but there won't be a big deal." So I went ahead and I went to go see him, and basically he took them out, and I ended up with the ones that you can see there. TA grade was the first grade on the for the tumors. So basically it came back as a high-grade aggressive cancer. So I ended up having to go through these BCG treatments where they take this tuberculosis vaccine and they put it in the bladder, and you're supposed to retain it for a few hours, and then it's supposed to get rid of the rest of the cancer cells. Well, I went ahead and went through these 6 treatments like I was supposed to, but in the meantime, I started doing a lot of research. And I also noticed that a lot of these foods were irritating my bladder. Like, for example, red dye was a big thing that stuck out of me. Because for one time I was I had eaten some cereal late at night. They were actually Cocoa Puffs. And the next morning I had some visible blood. And I went ahead to see what was in the ingredients, and what stuck out at me was red dye 40. And as you can see in the picture here, many foods have red dye 40. Anything that basically has a color in it has red dye in it, which has no nutritional value, but it's also cancer causing, that I found out later. Then I also found out there were a lot of foods that I was eating, they were laden with GMO pesticides, herbicides, and so forth and so on. So, and then again, they were genetically modified seed where the plants were able to grow, and they become resistant to any type of Roundup or any type of weed killer, so that when they go to harvest, they can spray these crops with this Roundup to kill the weeds out, but it won't affect the plants themselves, and the plants continue to grow. Well, these are things that they're doing, also changing the way the food is, taking seeds out of food and just changing the genetic structure of the food, which basically doesn't agree then with our bodies anymore. So I kept doing a lot of that, and basically what I did was I found going to all organic food was the way to go. I felt a lot better. I was doing really well with it. Matter of fact, a rash that my wife had her whole life, that in the last 10 years where the doctors were stumped about it. They couldn't figure out what it was causing it. They said, well, maybe it's hormonal, maybe it's you're going through menopause, and this was 10 years ago when she was only 40. And then also they were saying they were putting her all this medication and nothing worked. They were giving her all kinds of side effects and nothing was working. Well, just so happened that after all my research, I said, we have to go to all organic food. I'm doing better with it. And she says, what about us? I said, well, the whole family. And I said, because now that I found out what's in all these food and how they're laden with all these toxins, that we're going to need to basically just, all of us are going to change. So she went ahead and she started preparing all the meals, all organic, and her rash disappears on its own. And here it was basically the non-organic food we found that was causing a lot of irritations in her skin. So I went ahead on that diet and doing really good. And at that point, I went ahead and I started doing some research and started investigating, okay, what if this treatment, this BCG, doesn't work? What's going to be the next thing? And I was finding out that, as you can see in the chart here, everything starts out in the beginning where they have the diagnosis, but all roads pretty much lead to surgery, chemo, and radiation. And I started looking at statistics, and statistics were showing that basically, everything is basically, when you get diagnosed with cancer, it's a 5-year, pretty much almost like a 5-year death sentence, according to the doctor, because they said, well, if you make it to 5 years, you become a survivor. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, what are my odds? And as you can see there in the chart, the survivor rate is just barely over 50%. And pretty much the ones that do make it, what is the quality of life? Pretty much, you're either wearing a bag or you're having a bladder that is reconstructed, that you're incontinent and you've got many complications and so forth the rest of your life. And so I'm researching and going through, and one of the surgeries which was recommended, then I went to go see an oncologist at the Cleveland Clinic. I said at this point I knew it was cancer, and I said, well, I've changed my diet, I'm doing all organic, I'm really feeling good. I just got done with my BCG treatments, and pretty much I'm feeling, I don't think you're going to find anything, so I need to check up to see if there's, as long as, to make sure the tumors were gone. So, went ahead and he started advising me, he says, well, the cancer you have is a very high-grade aggressive cancer, and if there's a recurrence, he goes, we're going to suggest go right to surgery. He goes, because of the type you have, he goes, we're not going to mess around with it. So, he says it'll spread pretty quick. So, meantime, I'm doing my research, and they were going to recommend the gold glove treatment, which is radical cystectomy with neobladder, which means it's almost 5 surgeries in one. They remove the bladder, prostate, your lymph nodes surrounding the area, remove 4 feet of the small intestines so they can reconstruct and give you a new neobladder, they call it. And this bladder basically has no valve to keep it closed, so pretty much you have to exercise muscles and so forth and train it over time and stretch it. And it's just a long process. And this is after you overcome all the complications and so forth that are going to entail with the surgery anyway, because most of the time they're taking out 4 feet of intestines. When they put it back together, you end up with usually blockage, which means you have to change your diet again anyway. You can't eat a lot of fibrous foods. You have to watch a lot of the foods you eat. So a lot of these things were going on my mind, and I just didn't like the options that were there. And all the roads kept pointing, the conventional roads kept pointing toward RC, which is radical cystectomy. And I'm thinking, I just can't do this. So in the meantime, I need to go see how, and again, I'm doing the research and I'm finding out the way to do it is cut, burn, and poison. That's the way they wanted to do it. Pretty much that's what they wanted for me. And then I also did research and found that the normal cost to treat a cancer patient is $400,000 to $1.8 million from diagnosis to death. Then I also found that 27% of people who do nothing get cured of cancer. Well, I knew that I wouldn't fall in that category. And then I also found out that, well, then again, I'm thinking that it's got to be about the money. Because again, by Jove, I think I found a cure for cancer. No, you won't. They'll cut off our funding. So again, 1 in 25 people died of cancer in the 1900s. Now, 1 in 4 people die of cancer. In most cases, actual deaths are by medicine, because it's usually the chemo and the radiation that poison the people, because the body, it breaks down the immune system, they can't withstand those treatments. And then, again, 41% of Americans will eventually be diagnosed with cancer, which means almost 1 in 2. So if it's not you, it's going to be the person next to you that's going to be diagnosed with cancer before we die in our lifetime now. And again, what's causing all this? And then I found out, then I started noticing that my pH, was low, so I went to go see a holistic doctor, and I says, what do I need to do? And he says, well, here, you need to go on a diet. Let's see here. You need to go on a diet basically of all, mostly vegetables, fruits, leafy greens, and no meat, no dairy, and pretty much stick with this type of diet. So I'm on this diet, I'm really, really doing well with it. And again, I started, I went back and I'm changing it, and I'm going, again, all organic. I'm eating all these good alkaline foods. I'm eating, most of the foods that I'm eating now are mostly like I said, I'm staying away from all the acid foods, most of the alkaline ones in this group. And then these are all the supplements I started taking. I was doing baking soda in the morning to raise my pH. I was doing all these herbs and spices, and also chlorophyll and so forth, basically to build my immune system up. So then I go to at that point then I go to my urologist and I go have the second cystoscopy. And he tells me, he says, well, so I go ahead and have it, and I wake up from it, and basically the doctor consulted with my wife and says to my wife, Mrs. Marra, we found 4 new tumors larger than the first. And again, I'm asleep at this point, and I says, because at that point I woke up and I says, well, what's wrong? And she says, well, they found 4 new tumors. And I says, well, what did the doctor say? He says, well, he took me in the room and says, Mrs. Marra took me by the hand and says, your husband's in a dire situation. And he proceeded to draw a diagram on a piece of paper showing her the bladder, the tumors, and so forth, and says, look, this is a textbook case. Your husband's a very anxious person. You've got to tell him he's got to have this surgery. And being the good wife, like I said, she is, she turned around and looked at the doctor and says, doctor, look out the window. You see all these buildings and fountains and pillars. Do you think they were built by anxious leaders or calm followers? My husband's an anxious leader. So I told her, I said, thank you. So in the meantime, the doctor then, I says, well, where's the doctor? He said, well, he'll be in shortly. I said, okay. So he came in, and I asked him, I said, so how bad is it? And he says, well, it doesn't look good. I said, so what are my options? BCG treatment? He goes, no, they weren't effective. And again, that's where they take that tuberculosis vaccine, put it in the bladder. And I said, well, and I thought to myself, I agree, it's ineffective. And I said, so what are my other options? He says, well, you can get a second opinion. And I go, well, wait, you kind of are my second opinion. I went to my urologist, now you. And I'm thinking, well, how's the rest? I said, so how's the rest of my bladder look? And he goes, well, the rest of the bladder looks good. I said, well, you know what, doctor, until we've exhausted every conceivable option, it's not even on the table. He says, it's your choice. And he walks out. And at that point, he calls me back and he says, Mr. Marra, the pathology report came back. Just let you know, it's, again, high-grade aggressive cancer. Now it's T1. And again, it's almost into the muscle. And once basically it gets into the muscle, they're saying that that's when it has probability of spreading and metastasizing through the rest of the organs in the body. So and that's why he recommended at that point the radical cystectomy, and there were no other options to them. So again, I started doing a little more research, and I started checking. I says, one thing I went back to my holistic doctor, and I says, doctor, I says, I'm doing everything you told me to do. I changed my diet. I'm all organic. I'm feeling good. And I said, so what else do I need to do? And he says, well, just keep on track. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. I go, no, something's wrong here. I says, something's wrong. I says, but the other thing I noticed, I told him, I said, because I was testing my urine for microscopic blood and noticing that different foods would affect my the amount of microscopic blood in my urine, because again, it would feed the tumors. And I noticed, like I said, when I was eating those red dyes or any food that had any carcinogens in them, the microscopic blood count would go up. But at the same time, I also noticed that my pH was also very, very low all the time. And I knew that during my studies that we needed to get a pH of 7.365 is the ideal pH. So a pH of 7 and above is what's needed. And basically mine was around 5, 6 the whole time. So I said, how do I get it up? And that's when he told me, go read this book called The pH Miracle by Dr. Robert Young. It basically tells me how through diet and nutrition I could raise the pH up. And I also read this other book called The Only Answer to Cancer with Dr. Leonard Caldwell. And he was also talking about, doing the same thing with diet and so forth. So I'm doing it. I'm changing my diet, and I started juicing to get it up there. And I'm doing baking soda and water, which is to raise the pH, which is good. And I'm getting it up there. In the meantime, I'm still not getting it up there. I'm thinking, it raises, but then it drops again. So I start doing more research, and I'm thinking, what's causing this is acidosis, and why is my body becoming acid? And pretty much it's condition where there's just too much acid base, and condition where there's too much base in the body fluids. So to do that, basically more baking soda. So I was doing more baking soda, but then again, it just wasn't working. So then I started saying, well, there's a connection with stress. I was very, very stressed out, obviously, and I also, once I got diagnosed, I was really, really stressed, and I was upset with everybody, even God. I was upset with everything. So I says, you know what? I says, time to do something. And again, what stresses are there? I mean, you name it, there's so many different ones out. So it's like, how am I going to deal with this? And people even ask me, how did you deal with your stress? Well, basically, I went to God, straight to confession, and I went to my priest and says, you know what, I'm mad at the world and even God. And he says, you know what, don't worry, he's got big shoulders. And I went ahead and poured spilled my everything out to him, and pretty much I then started doing, again, I started praying, and then I went to Mass one day, and I also read in the book of Daniel, it was one of the readings, Daniel and his companions, before they went into the king's service, were supposed to eat all the choice foods from the king's table. Well, they didn't want to defile themselves, so they says, just give us vegetables and water for 10 days and see how we compare to the rest of the men. Well, after 10 days, not only were they healthier, they were stronger and wiser than all the other men. And they remained on that diet. So I'm thinking, that's the diet I have to go on. So I really had to basically go radical. It wasn't just a matter of going just organic only. I had to cut everything out of my diet, even fruit, because sugar, all kinds of fruit, feed the cancer. So I had to eliminate everything. So, and at that point, I started noticing that I'm eating better, more alkaline foods, eating all green vegetables. I started juicing, and basically I'm juicing celery, ginger, garlic, kale, spinach, no carrots. I'm doing no apples, again, because of the sugars in them. I'm doing a little bit of lemon in there, some collard greens, and cayenne pepper and cucumbers. So I'm doing all these every day. I'm juicing all these foods. Plus I'm eating the foods. I'm eating salads every day. I'm eating tons of vegetables. My wife is constantly cooking vegetables, cooking broccoli, cooking asparagus and Brussels sprouts, and sauteing them up and then making the salads and soups and so forth. And then when I was hungry, people said, well, what'd you do when you were hungry? I ate some more vegetables. And I just kept eating more and more vegetables. So basically, I started pretty much feeling worse before I started feeling better. It was almost like a detoxification going on. So, and then after that, every day I just started feeling better and better and better and better. And it ended up where I got to the point where, I said, you know what, I need to go see my oncologist again. I need to go see how it's, what it looks like. And I went to go see him, and again, this time, I wanted to be awake. And I told him the time before, I said, there's no way I'm ever going to be awake. And he says, well, you know, we're going to have to do a lot of these. And I says, at that time, again, I was very confident that he wasn't going to find anything. And he says, well, you know, we're going to be doing a lot of these, so you're going to have to sometime be awake. I said, well, it'll never happen. Well, this time, I made the appointment afterwards. I said, I want to be awake because I want to see. Because again, all the pain, all those, everything that, all the symptoms I felt, all the sensations I felt, what it was never really a pain except for a little burning here and there, but it was mostly a sensation of like just urgency and frequency to urinate, which is a normal feeling. And just something uncomfortable, just knew it wasn't right. And all those things just disappeared, and I basically felt perfectly normal again. So at that point I said, okay, I'm gonna go see him, and I went ahead and I made the appointment, went to see him. He put the scope in at this time, and he says, Mr. Marra, he goes, he started looking around. He says, everything looked good. He says, but there's some 3 red areas there. And I says, okay. He says, now those are areas of concern. And then he says, now those could be carcinoma in situ, which is the beginning of cancer. I said, I know what that is. He says, now we can take and we can biopsy those. Right away I looked at him, I says, no you're not. And he looks at me and I says, matter of fact, I think it looks good, considering what I've been through with the 2 surgeries to remove the tumors and the BCG treatments. You know, he's looking really intently, and we're not finding anything. We see a couple of those. At that point, you know, again, I went back and then, because again, cancer, like I said, it's not a death sentence. It's just a warning sign. You know, it's basically to tell us that, look, you know, we need to make a major change. You know, we've got too much stress. We've got we're eating too many of the wrong foods. And again, out there, because like I showed before, all these foods that are tainted with GMOs, they're tainted with the preservatives, the pesticides, the herbicides, and everything else. That's half the recipe. And then when we go through stressful events in our life, and you know, pretty much repeatedly and over and over, and then that in combination is what causes the cancer to develop. Then once we get the cancer, either or will feed it. And again, we go to our doctors, and what do? They give us more medication that basically creates more acidosis that feeds the cancer. And then again, that just masks the problem instead of getting to the root cause of the problem. And then on top of it, they scare you into where you have more stress, obviously, of diagnosis or worrying about getting cancer or having a serious illness. And all those stresses just feed whatever condition you have, and it actually fed, in my case, it fed the cancer. So again, it was a matter of then eliminating it all 100%. And that was the hard part. Again, sticking to the diet, and of course, you know, getting rid of the stress. But you know, some of the things I did, stop driving, stop watching the TV, whatever I had to do to get rid of the stress, that's what I did. But again, you have to do it like your life depends on it, because it does. And real quick stories, you know, my father had the same situation where he was, again, urinating blood. And this was about a year ago. And I told him, I said, well, you know, 2 things, you can go to urologist, and I knew exactly what they'd find because his PSA was up and he was basically not eating all the right foods. So long story short, he went ahead and he went on the same diet I did, eating nothing but vegetables and water. And it took him, after about 10 days, all his visible blood was gone. And after about 2 weeks, all the microscopic blood was gone. And after about a month and a half, pretty much he was back to normal. He wasn't getting up at all at night, and his bladder was feeling perfect. And pretty much, and even a year later now, he's back to his old diet, eating what he wants. Now he watches. I told him, you have to watch. I said, you can't be drinking, you know, that much and eating all that food again. And he does, and he feels great now. And you know, that's one of the stories that's good. And again, it's pretty much, you know, it's when we're upset, when we're stressed out, that's when we really have to watch. We don't have to watch, you know, so much if we're not upset. Like today, I ate everything that was here, which is all good. And again, because we can't go through life not worrying about, you know, having to stay on this one diet and not having to worry about the cancer coming back. Because one thing I prayed for was for the wisdom of Solomon to know what caused it, how to cure it, and how to keep it from coming back. And what I do now to keep it from coming back is basically when I go through periods in my life that I'm stressed out or I'm upset, I just won't eat those foods that I know are harmful. I eat mainly good vegan foods, vegetables mostly, if I'm going to eat at all, or I just won't eat if I'm that upset. And you just don't mix the combination together. And then when I'm not stressed, like today, just nervous, but other than that, not stressed, I can eat what I want, and I don't have to worry about it harming my body. Just like if I wash my hands with bleach, it's not going to do any harm as long as I don't have any cuts on it. Now, if I have cuts all over it, it's going to hurt. Well, as long as I don't have stress, the food isn't going to do as much damage as if we do have the stress. And it's the combination of the two. And again, there's so many things. What are stresses? It's psychological, there's physical stress, there's emotional stress, there's all kinds of stress that are in our lives, and that's what we have to look for. And a lot of them, honestly, it just, people say, well, how do you do it? Well, first of all, the first step for me was to go to God, obviously, and then the second step is just one by one, I started chiseling away at them, and pretty much until, you're at peace. And then at that point, once the body alkalizes itself, then the body can heal. And it's the only time the body can heal, basically, is when it's alkaline. Do I have any questions? Yes?
From the time you started on your water and vegetable diet, was it like 4 months till it cleared up? It only took 4 months, or did it take 8 months?
After I started my vegetable diet, it took about 4 months to clear up. At 4 months is when I went to see my oncologist, and that's when he saw that there were just those little spots in there. They were just pink spots, and it was just where he had taken the tumors out to do the pathology. That's where they were just healed over, and that was about 4 months.
Did you exercise during this time too?
No, did I exercise? No. Here's the other thing. Again, I tried to keep my pH up, and when I noticed that all kinds of stress, even physical stress, create acidosis in the body and would lower the body's pH. And again, I was struggling with that, and the biggest part of it, creating that acidosis, was my emotional and psychological stress. But the other part of it was, again, the diet. And I would do the baking soda, but that's it. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Had you ever gone to or considered an alternative therapist? Either a doctor or a chiropractor that does alternative therapy?
Oh yeah, forgot to mention it in my talk. Yeah, I went to go see a holistic doctor, and it was Dr. Todd Pesic, actually. He was a local doctor here in Lyndhurst. And I went to see him, and that's when I changed my diet to all organic, and he was giving me the supplements I needed to help build my immune system up. I was taking a lot of iodine, I was going in for vitamin C IVs, or vitamin D injections. Those IVs, I would go there for 2 hours pretty much and just sit there with an IV in me, and they would pump twice a week. They would just pump vitamin C right into my blood to help build my immune system up. So all these little things, and again, those are all in the book, little things that I did to help build my immune system up to basically allow the body to beat the cancer itself. Because see, instead of cutting the cancer out, it's like if you have a canker sore or a pimple. Instead of cutting it out and then waiting for the new skin to grow and heal, what we do is we just leave it alone and let the body heal itself. Well, it's the same thing with cancer. When we get cancer, all they are is cells trying to heal themselves, but get disrupted in the process. And what disrupts that process basically is everything, pretty much stress, and all the carcinogens in the food will feed that cancer. So what we need to do is get out of the way. It's just like if we get a canker sore and we continue to eat tomatoes, it'll never heal. But as soon as we stop eating anything citrus or acidy and allow it to heal, the body will heal itself. And the same thing with cancer. Once we get out of the way of the healing process, which is the acidosis in the body, creating acidosis, once we alkalize the body by eliminating stress and eating the right foods, the body will then heal itself. Yes?
How did you test your pH?
I tested my pH with urine test strips. I found them when I first found them. I went to a pharmacist I knew and asked them, and I did my research online and I found there were 10 parameter, and they basically were testing for glucose and they were testing for microscopic blood. I got it mainly for microscopic blood, and then on the strip was for pH, and that's when I noticed when my pH was low. I had to raise it up, and I used that to indicate every void I would test my urine, and if it was low, the pH, I would do a little more baking soda or whatever I had to do, and more juicing to increase that pH and keep my pH above 7.5, so that once the pH is above 7.5, like some of those other doctors said, that the cancer cannot grow or thrive in that type of environment. Just like a clean swimming pool. If you keep the pH and the chlorine balance in a swimming pool, basically you'll never get algae or bacteria. You know, having a swimming pool for 18 years, I kept keeping that in balance. I had to do the same thing with my body, making sure that my body was always a consistent 7.5 pH. And again, a lot of it wasn't just eating the right foods. Again, the biggest part of it was getting rid of the stress too, because stress created acidosis.
Where did you buy the strips?
I bought them through Amazon. There's some links on my blog. I've got a blog. If you go to my website, cancerescapee.com, there's links to my blog, and then in the blog there's also links to Amazon, to the websites to check for the pH strips.
Website one more time, Cancer Escape.
cancerescapee.com.
Some of
Any
the
questions?
top alternative cancer doctors recommend the following: cordyceps mushrooms, curcumin, cottage cheese mixed with flaxseed, chlorosol, noni juice, baking soda, which you mentioned, oxygen, Asiatic tea, apricot kernels, dandelion roots, barley leaf, and magnets. Do you agree with that?
Pretty much, yeah, I did them all. I did apricot seeds, I did all the vitamins, I did the Asiatic tea. I was doing that and boiling all that. I mean, I did the hydrogen peroxide therapy, food grade hydrogen peroxide. You put a couple drops in the water and drink it like that. I was doing pretty much everything that's on. I even did the Budwig protocol, which was with the cottage cheese and flaxseed oil, which was disgusting, but I did it. And you know, I did it all. I mean, pretty much you have to do it all, and I did it all 100%. And I think that's why it was effective, because it's not just doing one thing. And all those things in themselves are good, but they won't cure cancer. Again, the biggest thing that, you know, again, if you don't do it, you know, is the stress part. And again, you have to go to God with that one, because the emotional part, the psychological part is so important, because that creates acid in the body that I don't care how much baking soda like I was doing, and how much, you know, how much green vegetables I was eating and juicing I was doing, I wasn't able to get my pH up until I got my stress level down.
Tell a story about your grandma in Ireland.
Oh, you want me to tell that?
I'll let Nancy tell that one first.
Hi everybody, I'm Nancy Marra. I'm better like this. Yeah, I can't. I need stools everywhere I go. My sister-in-law is from Belfast, Ireland, and her mom was given a death sentence with esophageal, I think that's a cancer, and she's in stage 4. And we sent the book 9 months ago, and it's totally reversed itself. She's going to live, but she did it 100,000% like we did. When John said that I cut, juiced, washed, chopped, juice, repeat, that's what we did. He did not cheat. If the body has the ability to infect itself, in other words, if sugar is present instead of oxygen, the cancer will grow. What John and I did was starve the ability for his cancer to grow. Oxygen starves the cancer, sugar feeds it. If there's a cell of sugar, it will grow again. Now, my sister-in-law's mother, who's in Ireland, read the book, called my sister-in-law. It's working. We had a lady that when we had our little grocery store, she had her breast cancer. Her lump is gone. You can't cheat. People say, you can eat anything else. No, greens. No carrots, no beets, no apples. No sugar. 0. You have to stick with it. And it's not like juicing and then you have a big sandwich afterwards. There is a time where John had gone to Florida with his father so that he could de-stress. Get away from the bills, get away from the job, get away from work. John had to de-stress because John is a stressful person. My husband's very gracious to all our family, and my husband's like the patriarch of all of us. His parents, my parents, excuse me, he had to de-stress. My father-in-law was with them and made a big vat of salad, right? They're going to sit down at dinner together. My father-in-law made dinner. John pulled the big vat of salad towards him and goes, "Where's yours?" My father-in-law goes, "It's for us." He goes, "No, this is mine," okay? That's what we did. That's what we did as a family. We went on lockdown. When I say we went on lockdown, no one believed what we were doing. No one believed that would work. John was always a daily communicant. That's what he fails to mention. He always believed in God. Always went to God. And when he came home, he knew that he was going to tell me he was going to die. It was the first time I had to tell my kids I didn't know what was going to go on. But I knew after 23 years of marriage that no meant no. And I wasn't going to talk him into this surgery. And there was no doctor in the world that understood that traditional marriage. At that point, that doctor said, Mrs. Marra, don't you understand? He's in a life-threatening situation. You have 4 children. Isn't that enough? Because the doctor knew that our marital life would be over too, as an intimate couple. And I said, doctor, it has nothing to do with having more children or not having more children. My husband's desire to live a quality of life is what he wants. I said, and I still have an 11-year-old at home that will know a very upset father and a very unhappy man that would have to either catheterize himself, because even if he had the best bladder in the world, because the best bladder was a $250,000 bladder, they were going to take out his prostate, his lymph nodes, his bladder, and 4 feet of his lower intestine, and give him a neo bladder. And this neo bladder was going to be made out of that lower intestine, and he was still going to have to catheterize here and there. Well, that's not John. That's just not John. He says, well, have the bag. I said, well, the bag has all these complications. I said, and that's not John. I know who he is. So when I had to tell my kids, I don't know if this is going to work, and you just have to pray for Dad, and we're going to go eat green, and we're going to eat green. We're not going to go save the earth green, not that kind of green. We're going to go eat green. Well, I watched my 21-year-old son, who had always suffered from acne. His acne basically disappeared almost overnight. I've had asthma all my life. I was on 8 medications a day, 8, when I was taking care of him. And I was forgetting to take my medications because my medications also prevent this rash from coming back that I had. And I was waking up with no rash, and I don't have asthma anymore. But I followed it exactly what he was doing. I was juicing only green. I was keeping away. It was too hard to cook otherwise, so like cook for the kids one way and then cook for me another way or so forth. And God has a way of, out of something bad, something great came happen. Not only did his life was spared, I feel 1,000% better than I ever done. I haven't used my inhaler in 3 years. I don't have the rash that was horrible looking. It was almost like a bulbous rash that I used to get. I wasn't leaving the house till noon some days. It would come back at 8, 9 o'clock at night. It would clear up during the day. They were saying it was hormonal. I was going through menopause. I'm like, why isn't every woman that has menopause has a rash like this or has reactions like this? The doctor didn't know. But I believe that John's cancer is a wake-up call to all the way that we live. As Americans, we do eat too much. End of story, we do eat too much. But what we do eat does matter. It does matter to eat organic. If you read more about GMOs, our food isn't even food anymore. When John said GMO means genetically modified food. It's not even recognizable by the body. It's in our body as a chemical, and our bodies do not know what to do with it. So it harbors itself in certain organs and certain cells, and when it's harboring in these certain cells and certain organs, when your body is low with the pH, like John keeps on talking about, it's the main thing, your pH is low, it cannot heal itself. If you give your body the ability to heal itself by keeping a pH and reducing your stress, and by eating more vegetables and staying away from the dairy and stay away from the meat, I know it's very hard. It was very hard for us, it's not easy, and I'm not going to sit up here and tell you it was easy. It was meant to be, it was the only way that he was going to live. And we did it. We really did it. We'll cheat here and there if we go to a wedding or to go to a sacramental celebration or so forth, but we go back to eating vegan 6 days out of the 7 days. And I thank God that we're here today. I thank God for all of you coming here today. The book tells a much longer story. There's a lot in between, and there's more about the eating and how our family stood by us. My mother-in-law's over there. She lives next door to us. She's my other guardian angel. And she knew when I came home, I called her that day when the doctor put me in a room, and the doctor drew me a bladder and said, here's the 4 new tumors. I said, what do you mean? He says, there's 4 new tumors. Mrs. Marra, this is textbook. Now this doctor that was given to us was supposed to be the best of the best. We got into the Cleveland Clinic so quickly on the premise that someone we knew was on the board, and we were supposed to be someone else in that bed. In other words, we were supposed to be a somebody. We were supposed to be representing another doctor's family. We weren't. We were nobody, but we were supposed to have the best, and the best, that he was to have these 4 organs out, or Mrs. Marra, he was going to die. Well, here we are today, by the grace of God. by the power of the prayer of Solomon and by the book of Daniel, we are here. So I'm glad you're here today. I hope you listened and you learned, and please, if you can, spread the word. Yes?
Thank you for sharing this. And I know it took teamwork, the two of you and the first one, God. How long did it take your body when you first stopped eating regular food to get over the headaches, the craving? How long did that take?
How long did it take you, do you think?
For me, or
Doesn't matter.
like I said, it took me a couple of weeks initially. I started feeling, when I first went on the diet, I went through almost like a detoxification. And I started feeling worse before I felt better. And then after that, and then once I went through that period, about 2 weeks, then every day I just started feeling better and better and better until basically I felt, about 3 months later, I said, that's when I made that phone call to the doctor because I felt so great. I wanted to see, the progress.
Now, we are led to believe that we need protein, and the protein from meat is what we're supposed to have, iron, all of that. How does just green vegetables supply all that for all the different tissues in our body?
Well, mostly, again, I consulted with a holistic doctor, and I eliminated, just to beat the cancer initially, I eliminated all that. And I was getting protein from the juicing, from the vegetables themselves. They have plant-based proteins, very, very good. I mean, a cow, for example, only eats grass. Where does it get its protein at? Same thing with an ox. An ox is a very, very strong animal. How does it get its strength when it only eats grass? I did a lot of wheatgrass in my diet. Basically, I was doing, like I said, all the vegetables will have plant-based protein, and our bodies absorb 100% of that and utilize that. Because, see, what ends up happening is animal protein itself. Okay, what they say about we need protein, well, animal protein is going to create inflammation of the muscles and joints. And that's why when we eat animal proteins, we're going to get aches and pains. And again, that's why also bodybuilders eat a lot of animal protein to build muscle bulk. The reason being is because that muscle will be inflamed by that animal protein. And then as we increase the blood flow there and exercise that muscle, it basically breaks it down more and builds muscle on top of that inflamed muscle to give us muscle mass. And that's how bodybuilders and so forth will get and eat a lot of protein, animal protein, and then work those muscles and get that muscle mass. But by eating plant-based protein, we won't get that muscle mass, but we'll get muscle strength because the protein in the plants feed the muscles differently than the animal type protein and feed it. And again, because right now that I'm vegan actually and I eat very, very little meat, I'm actually stronger now than I was when I was eating meat almost every single day. And again, I was a little bit bigger, my muscles were a little larger then, but they weren't as strong. So it's a good sacrifice for me as far as that goes. But then again, now what I do is I'll eat a little bit, once a week I'll eat some meat, grass-fed beef, and so forth. And again, once in a while we'll go out to a regular restaurant, or an occasion like today I'll eat pretty much, a regular meal. But pretty much 80% of my meals are vegan, and I go, like in the recipes that I have in my book, those are my go-to foods that I go to pretty much every day. A lot of it is the soups, the broccoli with the quinoa pastas, and I'll either have it with the broccolini or made with red sauce, and a lot of salads and so forth. I'll eat those foods and I'll juice every day. Those are my go-to foods, and then once in a while I'll eat the other foods. And again, I eat what I want, when I want. It just depends on how I want to feel. The other day I went to my uncle's house and I had some regular spaghetti. It was homemade, and she had some chicken sausage. And I had a little bit of that, and I had a meatball. And I tell you what, a couple days later, my back is killing me. Because again, it creates inflammation. Because when I went on this diet to beat the cancer, not only did I beat the cancer, every ache, pain, and ailment in my body disappeared. Because I used to wake up in the morning, my back was killing me. I had to roll out of bed. It was sharp shooting pains in my back. I couldn't lift my arms up to wash my hair in the morning because my shoulders were in such pain. I had indigestion constantly. My knees were bad. I couldn't bend my knees. I had headaches, migraines constantly. I had psoriasis, dandruff all the time. And then when I used to cut myself, it used to take at least a month to heal. And I used to get cracked cuticles and so forth. All these things were all these conditions. Well, once I got the cancer and I go on this radical diet, not only did I beat the cancer, but every ache, pain, and ailment disappears. And then as I started introducing the foods one by one, my wife went out and bought some chicken one day, organic chicken. I ate it. A couple days later, my back is hurting again. I'm thinking, no, it can't be. So stop eating it, it goes away. Eat it again, it comes back. And every time I'm eating, I'm noticing now, if I eat once in a while, eat like a little grass-fed beef once a week, I'm okay. But if I eat more than once a week, I'll start feeling those pains. So, and the more I eat of it, the more pain I'll get. Because again, all these foods create inflammation. And for my body, being in construction for 30 years, I worked a lot with my back, my arms, my knees. So those are the areas where the inflammation is going to occur first and attack those areas and cause me discomfort. Just like a person who has arthritis because they work with their hands all their life. Well, the pain will settle off in there. Pretty much, it's usually something we've eaten. Like for example, also, my knee problem was eating too many eggs. And when I noticed that I started eating eggs again, my knee problems came back, and as soon as I stopped eating them, they would go away. And the same thing with my psoriasis. I noticed that it was every time I would eat refined carbohydrates, any kind of processed whole wheat, even whole wheat toast, I would get the psoriasis really bad. And again, it's the gluten in there also would affect our bodies. And you know, we think, well, whole wheat's supposed to be good. Well, whole wheat's good, but then again, it's not because of the gluten in it. You know, and it gives us a lot of, and people even that are not intolerant to gluten, it's still going to affect everyone's body some way, shape, or form. And I know how it affects mine now, all these other foods. So, you know, and then again, I noticed, you know, it's not just what we eat, it's also what state of mind where we eat it. And I notice now that if, again, I am upset or stressed in any way, I won't eat certain foods that will create more inflammation than foods that won't. You know, the foods that don't create inflammation are going to be your vegetables and, you know, a lot of your, most of your vegetables only you're going to not cause inflammation. Everything else is going to create inflammation somehow, shape, way, or form. So, yes.
Most of the juicing recipes or, you know, NutriBullet recipes all have something to make it taste better. When I looked at what you had up there, did it take you a while to get used to the taste of just garlic, lemon, kale?
No, I never got used to it. As far as the taste, it was horrible. And my idea, because I used to, not only did I juice the cucumbers and the kale, which is horrible, and then also, you know, the garlic and the ginger, but I also took the bottoms of the broccoli, okay, the stalks that you just throw away, I juiced those. The bottoms of the asparagus that people would just throw away, I juiced those. You know, anything that was in the, you know, any kind of salad, anything green in the refrigerator, I just basically just juiced it. And I drank it. And it didn't matter what it tasted like, because again, I had to kill this cancer. I wanted to kill it. I want to beat it. The conventional way, to me, wasn't an option. I couldn't go through it. I couldn't put my family through it. I couldn't be a burden to them, and I just figured there has to be a better way. So again, through a lot of prayer, and you know, God was guiding me every step of the way. You know, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. And pretty much, I just kept following it and prayed for the, you know, again for, and that's what I pray for a lot. People were praying for miracles. I says, the miracle is, you know, I know what to do. It's just the strength to do it. You know, it was very, very hard to discipline myself to do that. But once I got through that first couple of weeks and I started feeling better, it really got easier. It really did.
And how many supplements do you take now?
I'm not too good with that now. I take it maybe, you know, every couple of days I'll take just some iodine. I'll take some multivitamin, a raw multivitamin, some vitamin C, and vitamin D. But pretty much, that's the other thing. I juice every day, though. That's the other thing. I mean, juicing, pretty much all the vitamins, nutrients, and minerals that our body needs is in the juice. And that's why I juice every day, plus I eat all the other vegetables, because again, all the vitamins are there. Yes?
You ever use Vitamix instead of using the juicer?
I didn't. Again, it just depends. I mean, for me, I wasn't juicing any of the carrots or anything like that. So Vitamixes are good in one way because the pulp is there. But see, I was eating a lot of vegetables also, so I didn't need that extra fiber. More fiber would also create more of a stress on my body. So to alkalize my body, I would have to extract the juice from all the pulp and drink that down to try to alkalize. Because again, when we eat vegetables, it's like recharging our batteries. But when we drink juice, it's like plugging ourselves in the wall. Because see, when we eat the food, I mean, our bodies have to break it down. So eventually, breaking it down causes energy, and eventually that energy is going to run out. With juicing, pretty much our body doesn't have to do any work at all. It gets all the energy, and pretty much it's, again, it's like plugging ourselves in a wall. It doesn't run out of energy. So, and again, it also alkalizes the body. Yes?
Did you ever hear of something called biofilm?
Biofilm? No.
I'm just reading about it, where the bacteria in our body takes on a life of its own. And they said the supplements sometimes that we take actually feed these cells and make them even so strong that we cannot cure them. They just take on a life of their own. And antibiotics that we can put in our system make this biofilm that goes around these cells even stronger. So this is what we have to fight if that's it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that, biofilm.
And also I wanted to say, did you ever hear that the silverback gorilla can throw a 200-pound man across the street and all he eats is greens?
Right, right. They say strong as an ox, strong as an ox. Okay, big as a cow gets, how is a cow, its protein is made from what he eats. And about the Vitamix, real quick, the Vitamix, because the Vitamix has fiber, the fiber has to be broken down by acid in the body, and that's why we couldn't do the Vitamix, because it's in the book. We were doing Vitamix at the beginning, and this is when the cancer came back the second time. John had figured out that we had to get a slow masticating juicer. A slow masticating juicer will take out the fiber, give you straight, clear juice. Whatever comes in goes out, whatever goes in comes out, and it has to be organic because you don't want the pesticide or you don't want the fertilizer. So when he figured that out, we juiced 24/7. Every single minute, every single day. You heard the motor. My kids were like, "Here's that motor again." And we did it, and we did it, and we juiced it, and that's when he really started to heal because there was no fiber left, so his body didn't have to put out any acid, which causes, stress causes acid, and our body has acid to break down things. We didn't want to overstress his body in every way. So a basic Vitamix is good for juicing if you're not curing cancer. That's my answer to that. Okay, you can do it, but you have to use water. When you use a slow masticating juicer, which are more expensive, okay, you'll feel it's almost like an IV right into your vein because it's strict juice with no breakdown, and that's what we do at home now every day, right before we came.
Yeah, we juice every day, so. Yes?
About how many pounds of greens does it take to feed you?
Well, it takes about 1 pound of greens, which is 16 ounces. It yields 8 ounces of juice. So pretty much what I drink is I'll drink about 32 ounces every morning. So about 4 pounds it takes to juice every day. So each of us will drink about that much.
That's only in the morning, and then the rest of the day you'll just eat vegetables.
I'll eat vegetables, just vegan pretty much. I usually, right now, I mean, I'm good usually in the morning. I don't usually eat lunch. I'm usually good all the way till dinner time with just the juicing. It's usually when I add, like once in a while I'll go to Panera's and I'll have some green tea and a bagel. By midday, I can't keep my eyes open because I added that one bagel. But if I don't have that bagel, I got sustainable energy pretty much just from the juicing all day.
How much water do you drink on top of the juicing?
Probably about normal amount now. I used to drink like almost a gallon a day. Now I'm down to about half a gallon a day.
You got so much water in the vegetable, we don't need that.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Based on your experience now, do you think this way of eating is preventive for healthy people?
Absolutely. Again, you only have to go radical if you have the cancer. But if you don't have the cancer, pretty much you can eat what you want to eat. It's just a matter of, like I said, it's not what we eat. It's when we eat it, why we're eating it, how we're eating it, where it comes from, and the state of mind. So if we're conscientious, we're making sure that the food now is not genetically modified, that it's, good organic food, and that pretty much it's free of all the pesticides and herbicides, and we're not stressed out or really upset. We can eat that food and it's not going to have hardly any effect on us. It's when we are upset or stressed out and then we eat these foods with all these carcinogens is when then the percentage rate or the odds go up to getting cancer then. Yes?
One thing you didn't mention was salt. When you eat all these vegetables, can you salt them or not?
Oh yes, I was using sea salt generously. Processed salt is not good because it goes through a chemical process which changes then the molecular structure of it. But natural sea salt is very, very good for the body.
With iodine.
And again, I did it with iodine because the body needs iodine, because when we eliminate processed foods which contain regular sodium which has iodine in it, we need to replenish our bodies with iodine.
There
Yes.
was it over here.
They have iodine sea salt.
Yes, iodized sea salt is what I use.
Question over here, go ahead.
Yeah, John, you had said about the bodybuilders. I don't know if people remember the gentleman Jack LaLanne.
Yes.
Years ago, you know, when he was in his prime, people thought that he was a nut. They really thought that he was not right upstairs, and he proved everybody wrong. He used to say the same thing about eating greens and strength, and the lady made the connotation about the gorilla that you don't have to eat red meat every day.
Actually, when I eat red meat, I'm weaker. It makes me weaker. I don't have the strength. The other day, yesterday, or 2 days ago, I went and helped my dad. I lifted these fig trees into these pots. And no more than I would do all last summer, but the difference is, this year, is that I had a couple, like I said, I ate some meat this past weekend. Well, sure enough, right away, my back starts killing me right away because I increased the blood flow there. The inflammation started immediately. And it's just one of those things, as soon as we eat any animal protein, it gets into our bloodstream and it's going to attack the most vulnerable areas of our body. And everyone's going to affect a little different, but pretty much it's going to attack somewhere in our bodies and create inflammation. And that inflammation is just going to result in pain.
Thank you, John. Nancy, God bless you.
Thank you.
for sharing.
Was there one more, we'll take one more question. I know people have other appointments today. Was there one more in here? No, I guess not. Well, if you want to hear more and more of this and some good recipes, John's got his book back there, which he'd be happy to sell an autograph for you. And it's very reasonable. It's what, $12?
$12, 2 for $20.
Okay.
Buy one, give one to a friend. Because again, it's either you or the person next to you in your lifetime is going to be diagnosed with cancer. You know, and that's where we're at now in the world, because again, it's all in the food system and it's all with stress. And you know, we've got tainted food and we got obviously a lot of stress going on in our lives.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Is fish in the same category as red meat and chicken? according to
Yes.
what you've learned?
Fish is, matter of fact, the farm-raised fish is the worst. Like farm-raised salmon creates a major inflammation. If I eat any of that stuff, I mean, I'm hurting for days, if not a week. I mean, that's
Perch and walleye.
perch and walleye depends. Again, everyone's body's gonna be different, so it may affect someone more so than others. It's just a matter of pretty much just trial and error. But for the most part, if I eat too much fish myself, it causes inflammation, I'll have pain, just the same way as the regular meat does.
We're all in a state of inflammation. Just look at the TV. Look at all the drugs on TV. You know, from Prevacid, the acid, Nexium. We're all in a state of inflammation. If, you know, people say their back hurts or knee hurts or this. Try it at home. Get rid of the eggs. Get rid of the meat. See if you start feeling better. Give it 4 or 5 days. Our bodies are always in a state of inflammation because that's how we eat in America. We give our bodies information by what we eat. You try it at home, write it down, keep a journal. That's what we did. This was a long journey. This didn't happen overnight. And no one would have ever told me 4 or 5 years ago we were going to have any more pig roast or prosciutto or cheese on the table.
Pasta,
Or
red wine.
Pasta and red wine. That's what we ate, and we thought we were eating well. But most of our bodies are in some sort of state of inflammation. And green vegetables shrinks that inflammation by feeding your body oxygen. And your oxygen will feed your entire body.
Thank you so much, John.